A single touch bound his fate to 3 alien sisters. Now he's wed, with no clue how to untangle their triad bond. 3 hearts beating as one, 3 souls sharing a destiny, and one bewildered human caught in the middle. Welcome to a marriage where I is not enough, because me means all 3 of them. The dense, bioluminescent forest of Viridia Prime glowed with an otherworldly light as John Reyes stepped off his transport ship. The humid air washed over him, carrying unfamiliar scents, sweet, pungent, alive. This world breathed differently than any he'd visited before. Mist clung to the vibrant canopy overhead, filtering the light of this system's twin suns into a kaleidoscope of greens and blues that danced across the forest floor. John straightened his Federation uniform and adjusted the small crate under his arm. A diplomatic gift delivery. That's all this was supposed to be. 3 hours on this planet, then back to his ship and off to the next trading post. Just drop off the package, get the signature, and head out, he muttered to himself. No complications, no promises. The city of Amera spread beneath the forest canopy, a marvel of bioluminescent architecture and crystalline structures that seemed to grow organically from the forest floor. The buildings twisted upward, like translucent roots reaching for the sky, their interiors glowing with a soft blue light. John consulted his datapad. The package was destined for the Council of All, the governing body of the Baelora species, the native inhabitants of Viridia Prime. He'd read the briefing on their culture, a civilization deeply connected to their world's consciousness, practitioners of ancient bonding rituals, and worshippers of something called the Mother Net, which appeared to be a planetary-wide sentient root system. As he made his way through the sprawling market district, John couldn't help but notice the curious glances from the Baelora, tall and graceful, with skin that shimmered with an iridescent quality that reminded him of mother of pearl. They moved with a fluid harmony that seemed almost choreographed. Most striking were their eyes, large and almond-shaped, with irises that shifted colors like living opals. A group of children, at least he assumed they were children, ran past him, giggling in melodic tones. The sound was hypnotic, almost like wind chimes. "I'll be gone before dinner," John reminded himself, even as a strange feeling of unease crept up his spine. Something about the way the Baelora looked at him made his heart quicken. It wasn't hostility, but a kind of anticipation he couldn't place. The central plaza opened before him, dominated by what appeared to be a public altar, an elegant structure of interwoven living vines supporting a crystalline platform. Atop it sat a glowing crystal, unlike anything John had seen before. It pulsed with a rhythmic light that seemed to match the very beating of his heart. A small crowd had gathered around the altar, their voices raised in what sounded like a prayer or chant. John paused at the edge of the gathering, not wanting to interrupt what was clearly a sacred moment. He checked his datapad again. The council chamber was just on the other side of the plaza. "Excuse me," he said to a nearby Baelora. "I need to reach the council chamber. Is there another way around?" The Baelora turned, her opalescent eyes widening. "The stranger arrives at the time of the awakening," she whispered, her voice melodic, but tinged with surprise. "You must be the one." "The one what?" John asked. But the Baelora had already glided away, joining the others at the altar. With a sigh, John decided to skirt the edge of the plaza. The crowd seemed too engrossed in their ritual to notice him anyway. He'd almost made it to the other side when a sudden gust of wind, strange, considering they were under the forest canopy, sent the small diplomatic crate tumbling from his grasp. John lunged to catch it before it hit the ground, his momentum carrying him forward. He stumbled, arms flailing, and his hand came down on the crystal atop the altar. The world stopped. A blinding light erupted from beneath his palm, and 3 distinct beams, blue, gold, and violet, shot up into the canopy. The chanting stopped abruptly, replaced by gasps and exclamations. The crystal felt warm beneath his touch, almost alive, and John found he couldn't pull his hand away. "It cannot be," someone whispered. "The triune blood bond has chosen," another voice affirmed. John finally managed to yank his hand free, backing away from the altar. "I'm sorry," he stammered. "I didn't mean to interrupt your ceremony." The crowd parted, and 3 Bailora women stepped forward. They were nearly identical in height and facial structure, yet distinctly individual. The first wore elaborate silver ornaments that framed her face like a crown. The second was adorned with gold that seemed to flow like liquid across her shoulders. The third, slightly younger in appearance, wore simple violet robes that highlighted the gentle swell of her abdomen. The first spoke, her voice like crystal bells. "Stranger, a single soul cannot bear the weight of the mother net. The blood bond has chosen you." "What are you talking about?" John asked, backing away. "I'm just here to deliver a package." The second sister stepped forward, placing a hand on his chest. "Your heart now beats with ours. I am Feliora." "I am Melora," said the first. "And I am Virelia," said the third, her hand resting protectively over her pregnant belly. "You have awakened the triune blood bond. You are now our consort." "You're what?" John gasped. The youngest, Virelia, leaned close and whispered, "The breeding season has come early this year." John felt the blood drain from his face. This can't be happening." But the 3 sisters stood before him, their eyes glowing with the same tricolor light that had erupted from the crystal, blue, gold, and violet, and deep in his chest. John felt something shift, as if his heart was suddenly beating to an unfamiliar rhythm. "What have you done to me?" he demanded. Melora's expression turned solemn. "We have done nothing, stranger. The Tubo crystal has recognized you as our triune consort. It is an honor, not bestowed in 10 generations." "I don't want any honors," John protested. "I'm just a trader, not your consort." The sisters exchanged glances, and John felt a flicker of emotion that wasn't his own. Disappointment, concern, and something else he couldn't identify. "You must come with us to the sanctuary of the Mother Net," Feliora said gently. "The ritual must be completed, or the consequences will be severe for all of us." "I'm not going anywhere except back to my ship," John insisted. A crowd had formed around them now, and John noticed several Bailora wearing what appeared to be some kind of official uniform approaching, their expressions grave. Virelia clutched her belly suddenly, her face contorting in pain. "The child," she gasped. "It stirs in distress. The bond must be completed." "Child? What child?" John asked, panic rising. "I just got here." Feliora placed a calming hand on his arm. "The triune blood bond connects us all now. The child Virelia carries is the seed of our connection to the Mother Net. It was conceived in the previous phase of the ritual, but it needs all 4 souls to survive." John's head spun. He looked from one sister to the next, then at the concerned faces of the crowd. "This is insane. I'm just delivering a package." Melora stepped forward, her expression stern. "Human, you cannot just marry me. My 2 triplet alien sisters are part of me too. When you touched the Tubo crystal, you bound yourself to all 3 of us." Before John could respond, the uniformed Bailora surrounded them. Their leader, distinguished by elaborate insignia, addressed him directly. "Stranger, I am Emissary Thale of the Council of All. You have activated the triune blood bond ritual. By our ancient laws, you must complete the ceremony." "And if I refuse?" John challenged. The emissary's expression darkened. "Then you will be declared heretical and subject to immediate expulsion or containment. The ritual cannot fail. It is essential to our world's survival." John felt trapped. The diplomatic mission, his ship, his freedom, all seemed to be slipping away with each passing moment. "We cannot allow the ritual to fail," Melora said, her voice softening slightly. "Stranger, you cannot simply marry one of us. My sisters' souls are now intertwined with yours as well." John looked at the three sisters standing before him, at the glowing crystal that had somehow connected him to them, and at the expectant faces of the Baylora crowd. He was no longer just a delivery man. In one accidental touch, he had become something far more significant and far more complicated. "Take me to your council," he finally said. "I want to understand what's happening to me." The three sisters nodded in unison, and John felt a strange ripple of approval wash through him, emotions that weren't his own. Whatever had happened when he touched that crystal, he was now linked to these three alien women in ways he couldn't begin to comprehend. And somewhere deep in his mind, he heard a whisper that sounded like the rustling of leaves. "Welcome, Triune Consort. The Mother Net awaits." The council chamber was unlike any governmental hall John had encountered in his travels across the Federation. Rather than the sterile, imposing architecture he was accustomed to, this space felt alive. The walls were composed of interwoven translucent roots that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. The floor beneath his feet seemed to breathe, subtle vibrations traveling up through his boots. "I'm just a regular trader," John protested, his voice echoing in the cavernous chamber. "Not some divine consort for three alien priestesses." The Council of All sat in a semicircle before him. 12 Baylora elders, whose ornate garments and jewelry marked their status. At the center sat a figure whose eyes glowed with an intensity that made John uncomfortable, as if they could see straight through to his soul. "The tubo crystal does not err," the central figure stated. Her voice carried the weight of authority. "It has been waiting for a suitable vessel. That it chose an off-worlder is unexpected, but not unprecedented." "Vessel? I'm not a vessel for anything," John insisted. Feliora stepped forward, her golden ornaments catching the light. "Perhaps I can explain, so our consort understands." John winced at the term, but remained silent. "The Baylora have existed on Viridia Prime for millennia," Feliora began, her voice warm and melodic. "Our species has always worshipped the planet as a single living entity. The Mother Net, the sentient root network that spans our world, is the planetary consciousness that sustains us all." She gestured to her sisters. "The triune blood bond allows three sisters to unify their individual consciousness. But we require a fourth, a human, to serve as a bridge, helping the Mother Net communicate with the universe beyond." "Why me?" John asked. "Why a human at all?" Melora answered, her tone more clinical. "The Mother Net requires diversity to grow. A mind too similar to our own cannot create the necessary bridges." Virelia approached, one hand still cradling her swollen belly. "The child I carry is the seed of this connection. It was conceived during the first phase of the ritual, 3 lunar cycles ago, but it cannot survive without the complete bond." John felt dizzy. "You're telling me I'm somehow responsible for a child I had nothing to do with creating?" "Not in the physical sense," Feliora clarified, "but in the spiritual one, yes. The child carries the essence of all 4 souls, the 3 sisters and the consort. Without your spiritual contribution, the connection will fade, and the child will not survive." The Central Council member leaned forward. "You must understand the gravity of the situation. Off-worlder. This ritual maintains our connection to the Mother Net. Without it, our society, perhaps our entire species, faces collapse." John ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed. "So you've basically assigned me the central role in your civilization's continued existence?" "The tubo crystal assigned you," corrected Melora. "We merely perform the rituals." A commotion at the chamber entrance interrupted them. A group of Baylora in green uniforms entered, their expressions severe. "The Green Guard," Feliora whispered to John. "They've heard about the ritual interruption." The leader of the Green Guard approached the council, bowing deeply. "High Elder, We've received reports of a ritual disruption. Is this the interloper? He cast a suspicious glance at John. Not an interloper, corrected the High Elder. The Tubo crystal has chosen him as triune consort. The guard's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed in suspicion. An off-worlder? This is unprecedented. He must be taken to the Soul Gate immediately to verify the authenticity of the bond. John felt a spike of fear that wasn't entirely his own. Looking at the three sisters, he saw concern in their eyes. "What's the Soul Gate?" he whispered to Feliora. "A sacred site where the Mother Net's consciousness is strongest," she replied softly. "It will test the truth of our bond." "And if it doesn't like what it finds?" Feliora hesitated. "Then the consequences would be severe." The High Elder nodded to the guard. "Escort the triune bond to the Soul Gate. Let the Mother Net confirm what the Tubo crystal has begun." As they were led from the chamber, John's mind raced with thoughts of escape. His ship was still at the landing pad. If he could break away, make a run for it. "Don't," Melora's voice whispered in his mind, startling him. "The bond is already forming. If you flee now, all four of us will suffer." John jerked his head toward her. "How did you—" "The blood bond," Virelia explained, walking beside him. "It connects our minds as well as our souls. Not completely yet. The ritual isn't finished, but enough that strong thoughts and emotions can bleed through." Great, John thought bitterly. Not only am I forced into an alien marriage, but I don't even get privacy in my own head. A wave of hurt washed over him, feelings that weren't his own. The sisters had heard his thought. "I'm sorry," he said aloud. "This is just a lot to process." Feliora offered a sympathetic smile. "We understand. None of us expected this either." As they exited the council chamber, John got his first clear view of Emera from an elevated platform. The city stretched out beneath the massive forest canopy. Buildings and walkways integrated seamlessly with the living trees. Bioluminescent fungi illuminated pathways, and what appeared to be flying creatures, not quite birds, not quite insects, darted between the structures, carrying messages or small packages. "It's beautiful," he admitted despite himself. "It is our home," Melora said. "And now, it must become yours as well." Before John could respond, a large transport arrived, what the Baylora called a bio-ark. Unlike the mechanical vessels John was familiar with, this craft appeared to be a living entity. Its hull, composed of hardened, translucent material that pulsed with life. It hovered above the platform, supported by what seemed to be controlled air currents, rather than mechanical propulsion. "We journey to the Soul Gate," announced the Green Guard captain. "The Mother Net awaits the triune bond." As John boarded the bio-ark with the three sisters, he couldn't shake the feeling that with each step, he was moving further away from the life he had known, and deeper into a world he couldn't begin to understand. The journey to the Soul Gate took them through the Rainbow Forest, a section of Viridia Prime where the bioluminescent flora was at its most vibrant. The bio-ark glided silently between massive tree trunks, each wider than John's transport ship. The air became thick with glowing spores that danced around them like fireflies. John sat beside Virelia, whose discomfort was evident. "Are you all right?" he asked. She offered a weak smile. "The child senses your uncertainty. It troubles the connection." Guilt washed over him. Whatever his feelings about this situation, an innocent life was caught in the middle. "I'm sorry," he said. "I never meant to cause harm." "You touched the Tubo crystal without understanding," Melora said from across the craft, her tone accusatory. "Such carelessness has consequences." "Melora," Feliora chided gently. "He could not have known." "Perhaps not," Melora conceded. "But his thoughts now are only of escape, not of the responsibility he bears to us and to the child." John felt his face flush with anger and embarrassment. "You can't blame me for wanting my freedom. I didn't ask for any of this." Neither did we, Virelia whispered, one hand still resting on her belly. But the child grows weaker. With each moment the bond remains incomplete. The guilt intensified. John looked at each sister in turn, feeling the three distinct emotional currents flowing through their shared blood connection. Melora, stern and disappointed. Feliora, warm but saddened by his resistance. Virelia, worried for the child she carried. "What exactly will happen at this soul gate?" he asked, trying to focus on the immediate future rather than his jumbled emotions. "The Council of All will convene there," explained Feliora. "You must demonstrate your sincerity to maintain the three souls now connected to yours." "And how do I do that?" "Through the symbiotic unification," Melora stated. "You must harmonize our three hearts to beat as one within the sacred chamber beneath the mountain." John's apprehension grew. "And if I can't?" None of the sisters answered, but he felt their collective dread like a cold stone in his stomach. The bio-arc descended into a massive clearing where a structure unlike anything John had ever seen dominated the landscape. The Soul Gate, a colossal archway composed entirely of living roots, twisted and knotted into an intricate pattern that seemed to tell a story John couldn't read. The arch pulsed with blue-green energy, and beneath it, a path led down into the earth. As they disembarked, John noticed other Baelora arriving, some in formal attire similar to the council members, others in simple garments that marked them as ordinary citizens. Word of the ritual had spread quickly. "All of these people are here to watch?" John asked nervously. "To witness," corrected Melora. "The triune bond is sacred. It has not occurred in 10 generations." The Green Guard formed a protective circle around John and the three sisters as they approached the Soul Gate. The crowd parted respectfully, though John caught many curious and some suspicious glances directed his way. At the archway, the High Elder awaited them, now dressed in ceremonial robes that seemed to shift colors with each movement. "The Mother Net stirs," she announced. "It senses the triune bond and the stranger who has joined it." John felt a strange sensation beneath his feet, a vibration that traveled up through his body. The ground itself seemed to be acknowledging his presence. "Prepare the chamber," the High Elder commanded, and several attendants hurried through the arch and down the earthen path. "What happens now?" John whispered to Feliora. "Now," she replied, her golden ornaments catching the bioluminescent light. "We descend to the heart of the Mother Net, where you will either become truly one with us, or the bond will be severed forever." The implication was clear. If the bond was severed, the child Virelia carried would not survive. And based on the grave expressions of the Council and the Green Guard, John suspected his own fate would be equally dire. As they passed beneath the Soul Gate, John felt a surge of energy wash over him, like walking through an electrical field. The path descended steeply, carved directly into the living earth. Root tendrils lined the walls, pulsing with the same rhythmic light he'd seen throughout Viridia Prime. The further they descended, the stronger the connection between John and the three sisters seemed to grow. He could feel their emotions more distinctly now. Melora's determination, Feliora's hope, Virelia's fear for her unborn child. And beneath it all, something else, a vast, ancient consciousness that seemed to be evaluating him with every step. The Mother Net itself, awakening to his presence. The chamber at the bottom of the path opened into a vast cavern, its ceiling lost in shadows, despite the bioluminescent glow that emanated from the walls. At its center stood a raised platform surrounded by a pool of glowing liquid that reminded John of quicksilver. On the platform sat another tubo-crystal, larger than the one he'd touched in the plaza. This one pulsed with a tricolor light, blue, gold, and violet, the same colors he'd seen emanating from the three sisters. The High Elder took her place on one side of the chamber, flanked by the Council of All. The crowd of witnesses formed a circle around the pool, their expressions solemn. "Approach the unification crystal," the High Elder commanded. John hesitated, looking to the sisters for guidance. "We go together," Feliora said, taking his hand. Melora and Virelia moved to his other side, and the four of them stepped onto a narrow bridge that crossed the pool to the central platform. The crystal's pulsing grew more intense as they approached, the tricolor light washing over them in waves. John felt lightheaded, as if the very air in the chamber had become charged with energy. "Place your hands upon the crystal," the High Elder instructed. "Let the Mother Net judge the worthiness of your bond." John looked at the three sisters, who nodded encouragingly. Even Melora's stern expression had softened slightly. "What exactly will happen?" he asked. "The crystal contains the blood of my sisters and me," Virelia explained. "When you touch it, our essences will either harmonize or reject each other." "And if they reject?" "Then the bond will break," Melora said simply. "And with it, any chance for the child to survive?" John took a deep breath. Despite his desire for freedom, he couldn't bring himself to be responsible for the death of an innocent. And beneath that moral imperative, he felt something else, a growing connection to these three women that he couldn't explain or deny. "All right," he said. "I'm ready." He placed his palm on the crystal. Instantly, three beams of light, blue, gold, and violet, erupted from the crystal, wrapping around his body like living tendrils. John gasped as sensations flooded through him, memories that weren't his own, emotions too complex to name, and the distinct feeling of three other heartbeats synchronizing with his own. In his mind, he heard three voices speaking simultaneously. Melora. He hesitates still. His heart is divided. Feliora. But there is compassion there, and the potential for understanding. Virelia. The child weakens. We must complete the bond quickly. The chamber began to shake, dust and small stones falling from the unseen ceiling. The root tendrils along the walls writhed and pulsed more intensely, as if agitated. "The Mother Net responds," cried the High Elder. "It senses the triune bond." But something was wrong. The energy flowing through John felt chaotic, discordant. The three distinct heartbeats he'd felt moments ago were now racing arrhythmically, fighting against each other rather than harmonizing. The High Elder's expression turned grave. "The bond is unstable. The off-worlder's soul is not pure enough to channel the three consciousnesses." John saw the three sisters falter, pain etched on their faces. Virelia clutched her belly, doubling over with a cry of anguish. "The child!" she gasped. "It fades!" The realization hit John with crystal clarity. This was the moment of truth. He could resist the bond, maintain his individual identity and freedom. But at the cost of 3 lives, the sisters who would be severed from the Mother Net, and the unborn child who needed the complete bond to survive. Or he could surrender completely, allow his identity to merge with theirs, becoming something neither fully human nor fully Baelora, a hybrid consciousness with 4 distinct components. The ground beneath them shook more violently. Cracks appeared in the platform, and the glowing pool began to churn and splash against the bridge. "Decide," commanded the High Elder. "The chamber cannot withstand the Mother Net's distress much longer." John looked at the 3 sisters, Melora stern but faltering, Feliora hopeful despite her pain, Virelia desperate to save her child. In that moment, he saw past their alien features to the souls beneath, souls now inextricably linked to his own. "I choose to protect them," he shouted above the rumbling. "I choose to protect the child. Bind us as one." He pressed both hands firmly against the crystal, closing his eyes as the tricolor light intensified to blinding levels. A wave of energy surged through him, erasing the boundaries between his consciousness and those of the 3 sisters. For one breathtaking moment, John ceased to exist as an individual. He was Melora's wisdom, Feliora's compassion, Virelia's courage, and they were his determination, his adaptability, his human perspective. 4 distinct souls merged into a single harmony, unified by their shared commitment to protect the fragile life that connected them all. The world dissolved into pure light, and the sound of 4 hearts beating as one, a promise to protect the planet that had brought them together. When John opened his eyes, the chamber had stilled. The violent shaking had subsided, replaced by a gentle, rhythmic pulsing of the root tendrils along the walls, like the steady breathing of a sleeping giant. The 3 sisters stood beside him, weakened but alert. Virelia's hand rested on her belly, a smile of relief brightening her face as she felt movement from within. "The child lives," she whispered. "It grows strong again." The High Elder and the Council of All approached the platform. Their expressions transformed from grave concern to reverent awe. One by one, they knelt before the 4 figures standing on the platform. "The Triune Consort has proven his worthiness," the High Elder announced, her voice echoing through the chamber. "The Mother Net accepts the bond." The crowd of witnesses followed suit, kneeling in recognition of what had transpired. John felt distinctly uncomfortable with such deference, but sensed through the bond that this was an honor rarely bestowed. From the pool surrounding the platform, tendrils of the glowing liquid rose up, reaching toward them. Rather than feeling threatening, the movement seemed almost gentle, curious, even. The tendrils brushed against Virelia's pregnant belly, leaving a faint luminescent trace that slowly faded. "A blessing for the Triune Seed," Feliora explained, sensing John's confusion. "The Mother Net acknowledges the child as a cornerstone of its future network." "What happens now?" John asked, still disoriented from the intensity of the bonding experience. "Now we return to the surface," Melora said, her voice softer than before. "Tomorrow, a ceremony will formally announce our union to all of Viridia Prime." As they crossed the bridge back to the chamber's edge, John became aware of a new sensation, a background awareness of the 3 sisters that hadn't existed before. He could sense their presence even without looking at them, could feel the general tenor of their emotions, and occasionally could catch glimpses of their thoughts. More surprisingly, he could sense something else, a vast, patient consciousness that seemed to permeate the very air around them. The Mother Net itself, now accessible to him through the bond he shared with the sisters. The ascent back to the surface passed in a blur of conversation and preparation. The council discussed the upcoming ceremony. The Green Guard arranged for their safe transport back to Amera, and throughout it all, John found himself increasingly able to understand the nuances of Baelora culture through the shared knowledge of the 3 sisters. By the time they emerged from the Soul Gate into the twilight of Viridia Prime, John had begun to accept his new reality. He was no longer just John Reyes, Federation traitor. He was the Triune Consort, bound to 3 alien women and their unborn child, responsible for maintaining a critical connection to the consciousness of an entire planet. "I never delivered my package," he realized suddenly, remembering the diplomatic gift that had started this whole adventure. Feliora laughed, the sound like silver bells. "I believe under the circumstances, the Federation will forgive the delay." "The Federation," John murmured. "I'll need to contact them, explain what's happened." "The Council has already sent a message," Melora informed him. "Your new status as Triune Consort changes the diplomatic relationship between Viridia Prime and the United Federation. We are no longer just a potential ally. We are family." The implications were enormous. John had inadvertently become a bridge between 2 civilizations, a human representative embedded in the very heart of Baelora society. As they boarded the bioark for the return journey to Amera, Virelia took his hand, placing it gently on her belly, beneath his palm. He felt a strong kick. "The child knows you now," she said softly. "All 3 aspects recognize their 4th parent." "3 aspects?" John questioned. "The child carries the essence of all 3 sisters," Feliora explained. "It will be born with a triune lineage, wisdom, compassion, and courage united in a single being." John tried to wrap his mind around the concept. And my contribution? Adaptability, Melora said. The human capacity to change, to grow, to face the unknown. It is why the mother net sought a human consort, to introduce this quality into our lineage. As the bioarc glided through the bioluminescent forest, John watched the rainbow colors play across the faces of the three women who were now his wives. The bond between them pulsed with a steady rhythm, like a fourth heartbeat that existed in the spaces between them. I still don't fully understand what I've become, he admitted. None of us do, Philiora said gently. The triune bond is rare even among our people. We will learn together. That night, in the living quarters prepared for them in the heart of Amera, John lay awake, listening to the breathing of the three sisters in adjacent chambers. Through the bond, he could sense them even across the distance. Melora reviewing diplomatic protocols for tomorrow's ceremony. Philiora meditating to strengthen the bond. Virelia singing softly to the child within her. For the first time since touching the tubo crystal, John allowed himself to consider not what he had lost, but what he had gained. A connection deeper than any he had known, a purpose larger than himself, and a family that defied conventional understanding. As sleep finally claimed him, his last conscious thought was a promise, not just to the three sisters, but to the child they would raise together and the planet that had brought them into this unexpected union. The dawn brought with it a transformation of Amera. The city sparkled with enhanced bioluminescence, the buildings and walkways adorned with living decorations that pulsed in the tricolor pattern that had come to represent the triune bond. John stood before a mirror in his chambers, examining the formal attire the council had provided. A flowing robe in iridescent white, embedded with filaments that glowed with the now familiar blue, gold, and violet. "It suits you," came Melora's voice from the doorway. She had entered silently, already dressed in her ceremonial garments. The silver ornaments framing her face seemed more elaborate than before, catching the light in hypnotic patterns. "I feel like I'm playing a part in someone else's story," John admitted. Melora approached, adjusting the collar of his robe. "It is your story now as well. Through the bond, you have become essential to our narrative." "And what is that narrative, exactly?" John asked. "Beyond the ritual and the ceremony, what does being triune consort actually mean?" "It means you will help us guide our people," Melora explained. "The triune bond gives you insight into our ways, just as it gives us insight into yours. You will be a bridge between our world and the Federation, helping to forge an alliance based on true understanding, rather than mere political convenience." Before John could respond, Philiora and Virelia joined them, each dressed in ceremonial garments that complemented their distinctive styles. Philiora in flowing gold that seemed to cascade around her like liquid sunlight. Virelia in violet that accentuated her pregnancy while maintaining the dignity of her position. "The council awaits," Philiora announced. "The people have gathered in the Mother's Plaza." Together, the four of them made their way through the corridors of the living structure that housed the governmental offices of Amera. Green guards lined their path, offering formal salutes as they passed. The Mother's Plaza stretched before them as they emerged onto a balcony overlooking the vast space. Thousands of Baelora had gathered, their collective anticipation palpable, even without the bond to enhance John's perception. The High Elder stood at the center of the balcony, arms raised to command silence from the assembled crowd. "Citizens of Viridia Prime," her voice rang out, amplified by some property of the living architecture. "We gather to witness the completion of the triune bond and the acceptance of our first off-world consort." A murmur passed through the crowd, eyes turning upward to where John stood with the three sisters. "Step forward," the High Elder instructed. John moved to the edge of the balcony, the three sisters forming a semicircle behind him. He could feel their steady presence through the bond, lending him strength and confidence. John Reyes of Earth, do you accept your role as triune consort, guardian of the triune seed, and bridge between our peoples? John felt a moment of hesitation, a final acknowledgement of the life he was leaving behind. Then he thought of the child Virelia carried, of the connection he now shared with these three remarkable women, and of the vast, patient consciousness that had welcomed him into its network. "I do," he said, his voice carrying across the plaza. The High Elder nodded solemnly. "Then let the union be sealed in the sight of the Mother Net." She gestured, and attendants brought forward a smaller version of the tubo crystal. John and the three sisters placed their hands upon it simultaneously. The moment they touched the crystal, a surge of energy flowed through the bond, stronger and clearer than before. The connection between them crystallized, taking on a permanent quality that John instinctively knew could never be broken. At the same moment, the bioluminescent forest surrounding Amera burst into brilliant light, visible even through the dense canopy. The light pulsed outward in concentric circles, racing across the surface of Viridia Prime like ripples in a pond. "The signal goes forth," the High Elder announced. "Viridia Prime speaks to the galaxy. We are united." Hours later, as the celebration continued throughout Amera, a message arrived from the United Federation. John read it with the three sisters at his side, their presence in his mind now a comfortable constant, rather than the disorienting intrusion it had first seemed. "The Federation extends formal recognition of the Union," John translated for the Council. "They offer congratulations and confirm Viridia Prime's status as an official ally, with me serving as primary liaison between our peoples." The High Elder nodded in satisfaction. "The Mother Net's wisdom is confirmed. Through you, our world joins the greater community of planets." As the days turned into weeks, John gradually learned to navigate his new existence. The bond with the three sisters deepened, allowing him to access their knowledge and experience while maintaining his distinct human perspective. He learned to balance the three aspects they represented: Melora's wisdom, helping him navigate the complex political landscape of Baelora society; Feliora's compassion, opening his eyes to the interconnected nature of all life on Viridia Prime; Virelia's courage, inspiring him to embrace his role fully despite its challenges. In turn, he shared with them the human qualities that had drawn the Mother Net to choose him: adaptability, creativity, and a unique perspective that complemented their own. The child grew stronger each day, its presence in the bond becoming more distinct as Virelia's pregnancy progressed. Through the connection, John sometimes caught glimpses of the consciousness forming within, a mind unlike any other, composed of elements from both human and Baelora heritage. 1 year after his fateful touch of the tubo crystal, John stood in the Mother's Temple, watching the sunset filter through the bioluminescent canopy. The temple had become their home, a living structure that had grown to accommodate the unique needs of their family unit. Melora had taken charge of diplomatic relations, using her wisdom and the insights gained from John's human perspective to strengthen Viridia Prime's position within the Federation alliance. Feliora oversaw the welfare of their community, ensuring that the benefits of the alliance were distributed fairly among all Baelora. Virelia, her pregnancy now in its final stage, had become the leader of the Green Guard, infusing the traditional force with new strategies and approaches inspired by John's knowledge of Federation security protocols. And John stood at the center of it all, no longer just a human or merely a consort, but a true guardian of the triune bond, a bridge between worlds, cultures, and consciousnesses. As he gazed out at the glowing forest, he felt the presence of the three sisters join him, Melora to his left, Feliora to his right, Virelia directly beside him, her hand guiding his to the movement beneath her skin. "The child will be born when the third moon aligns," she said softly, "a symbol of unity between our civilizations." John nodded, feeling the anticipation through the bond, not just from the sisters, but from the mother net itself, the vast planetary consciousness that had welcomed him into its family. "I never thought I'd marry anyone," he mused, "let alone become part of a plural family protecting an entire planet." Feliora laughed, the sound harmonizing with the ambient tones of the living temple. "And we never imagined sharing our bond with a human. Yet, here we are." Melora, typically the most reserved of the three, placed a hand on his shoulder. "The mother net chooses wisely, even when its choices seem incomprehensible at first." The four of them stood together, hands joined, as the tricolor light, blue, gold, and violet, merged with the green glow of the forest, stretching upward beyond the canopy. From space, it would appear as a beacon, a symbol of the plural unity that had transformed one human trader into the cornerstone of an interplanetary alliance. "I didn't just marry one person," John said softly, squeezing the three hands that held his own, feeling the fourth life stirring beneath Virelia's skin. "I became part of a plural family, and together, we'll protect this new home of ours." The tricolor glow intensified, reaching upward like a pillar of light connecting Viridia Prime to the stars beyond, a symbol of the soul unity that had brought them together, and of the journey that had transformed John from just one person to one with three. In that moment, through the bond they shared, all four felt the same emotion, not just acceptance of their unusual family, but celebration of it. For in their difference, in their plurality, they had found a strength none could have achieved alone. And as the light of Viridia Prime reached toward the distant stars, John Reyes, once a simple trader, now triune consort, embraced his extraordinary fate with open arms and an open heart. Not one heart, but four, beating together in perfect harmony.